It is about divorce, but it's about the money. Bruce Sellery is here. Let's talk finances. I hear all the time that couples stay in the same home. They decide to prolong the relationship together because the divorce, this idea of divorce looming is way too much money.
Yes.
So where do you want to start on this topic?
Well, first, we're going to focus on the financial impact. And there are so many layers of divorce. There's so many emotions. There's so much logistical stuff to be sorted out. We're going to focus on the money, and we're going to include the perspective of people who are going through this, but also include the friends and family who are around the people who are going through this, because if they haven't gone this path, they might not have any sense for the kind of costs that are involved. The other thing that I want to state as sort of our framework is, let's be Switzerland. There's a lot of right, wrong, bad, good, he said, she said, that we're going to park that to the side and just focus on divorce. Now, my parents were divorced when I was 10. It turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. So I have, as an adult, a pretty empowered view of divorce. It's messy and it's horrible, but it works out. So we're going to focus on the money and focus on how couples, or soon-to-be divorced couples, can minimize those costs.
Okay, so let's talk about the costs. How much does divorce cost?
So from here, this tiny little amount, an uncontested divorce, it's $1,000 to go through the court. Teeny tiny amount to, whoa, holy jeez, that's a house over here. It can cost an epic amount of money. So the real variable is legal fees. So a good family lawyer, divorce lawyer, could be $250 an hour. They could be $900 an hour. And I talked to one in the city, and he said, you know, the average case files like 40 hours. So you could be looking at $30,000 to $40,000. Maybe that's times 2, depending on how you decide to staff it. And these lawyers need a $5,000 retainer check just to get started. So from a legal perspective, it can be an enormous cost, and it could be a small cost.
Can you explain what an uncontested divorce is, since
you
that's
just
the cheapest way?
Can I have that?
What's that?
Well, this is the one where you just apply to say, we're just going to go through and do it on our own. We're not going to contest anything. There's nothing really to focus on. We'll use the guidelines on this, 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 and this, and we're just going to go file in the court. The big way to save money, just to follow on that point, is choosing a path that doesn't have you head to the court. So that could be mediation, arbitration, in which both sides agree to follow what the arbitrator says, and a relatively new process called collaborative law, where they're lawyers, but their focus is on trying to have this work for everybody. So first is the approach. There's also a service called Fairway Divorce Solutions that's been around about a decade, and they've got representation across the country. They call themselves a dispute resolution company. And so they have mediators and all those kinds of things, and a process that allows you to do it perhaps in a little more cost-effective way. So that's one.
I love that.
A couple of other ones, and these are coming from divorce lawyers who it's in their self-interest to have this take time, but they also want their clients to get value. Do your own research. So instead of asking your lawyer to explain everything, come in with a basic sense of what things mean, and then you can, of course, clarify.
So they're not billing all those hours when you're asking all those questions.
Explaining something to you that you could have just read online. Second, be super organized. So there's a lot of paper, there's a lot of forms, they're going to ask you to do a lot of stuff. The more organized you are, the less time you will take. And then this last tip kind of surprised me, and it was control your lawyer. They will write letters, they will incur expenses that aren't necessarily critical. So you want to be asking them, do we have to do that? Is that critical to our case here? Because sometimes the clients can amp up the energy and the animosity in a way that if they moved the other direction and dialed it down, it would be cheaper.
Or maybe just ask, can I write the letter?
Exactly.
Can I write the letter?
Could my 4-year-old write the letter?
Is there any way? Is that cheaper? I want to talk about real estate, because real estate, I mean, right across the country, we were talking about it being on fire. Where does that measure into this whole discussion?
Today versus 5 or 10 years ago, it's a very different thing, because the price of real estate has risen so much. So I talked to one divorce lawyer who said, we were about to do a settlement a year ago. We got stuck in a whole bunch of red tape. So a year elapsed. The house price rose 30%, and the spouse who had intended on buying out the other spouse couldn't do it anymore. So real estate is huge. There is also the cost of selling the family home. So it's staging, it's real estate commissions, it's painting, it's all those kinds of things. That has a real and tangible cost. And then the third one, the big one, and the one that's going to be an expense for a long period of time, is a second home. So if you had a family home and now you don't, and you've got 2 family homes, of course parents would endeavor to have that be in a neighborhood nearby. That's 2 times the kind of cost on property taxes and It's a lot of money.
So you're saying just consider what your options are and try and do something that's going to mitigate that amount of money.
Yes, and just know that this is the path you're walking on, and it can be really, really tough for your personal finance today and tomorrow. So one of the other things I want to include here is retirement savings. So some couples need to collapse a portion of their RRSP in order to pay these bills. Remember that when you do that, the financial institution withholds tax. So you collapse, you know, $50,000 in your RSP, you don't get $50,000 because you have to pay tax on that as income. Then when you look, everybody got so quiet, I feel like I should juggle tomatoes or something like this.
I know, it's just it's a lot to consider.
It's a lot to consider, and it's, you know, anybody who's been through it, it's an extraordinarily difficult phase. So I'm just trying to, you know, have us go through eyes open. On the pension front, those pensions, a defined benefit pension, will be a part of the settlement. So you may sort of think, well, I had it made in the shade, I had a defined benefit pension plan. Those pension credits may get split. So pension, child support, and spousal support. Of course, there are guidelines for this on child support based on income of number of kids, and for spousal support, how long you've been married and the proportional income. Because one thing that's a real surprise in some families is you've been married for a couple of decades, and we're seeing this with boomers who separate and divorce, is one party may be accountable for spousal support indefinitely. So if one spouse has chosen not to work, has foregone their career, now they don't have the skills to participate in the workforce, that may be that they will receive spousal support for a long period of time, which is a big expense. The last one that I want to flag is around benefits. So when you're married, you've got one spouse who has a lovely benefits plan. There's medical, there's dental, there's all sorts of things. When you get divorced, you may not have access to the dental, to the life insurance, and so replacing that coverage can be another not insignificant expense.
Okay, that is really good.